I'm going to let Matt say a little bit about our webinar series, and thank you all for joining us. It looks like we've got a flood here right at the 11 o'clock mark, but there are multiple webinars in our series. Matt, can you tell them a little bit more about the other webinars and how they might attend?
Absolutely. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Matt Jacobson. I'm the online learning coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. I'd like to remind everyone before we get started that we are recording this webinar today, and this recording will be posted on YouTube probably by the end of the day if I can scoot things along a little bit. Also, Illinois PD credit is available for all attending live today during this and all of our webinars. Evaluations will be emailed to our live participants within 24 to 48 hours as well. If you are interested in catching up on our webinar series, you can check out our YouTube channel, search for LTC Illinois, or you can go to ltcillinois.org/events/webinars and browse all of our upcoming and past recordings and just click on that link to either register or to be taken directly to an archived video of your choice. If you have any questions today, please feel free to type those into the chat or the Q&A. Both Mindy and I will be monitoring both of those panels throughout the day. And if we have some time at the end, we'll also unmute so you can have a conversation with Mindy if you'd like. If you are using the chat, please make sure you change that little blue drop-down menu in the chat window to read everyone so we can all read your questions and benefit from the responses. Today, Mindy Fiscus from the LTC, our Digital Access Coordinator, has a little, some hints for you about the Emergency Connectivity Fund. Mindy, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you to Matt for setting this up, and also to the rest of the staff at the LTC. We do have a wonderful team on staff that all works together to make me look good and sound important when I talk to you guys. So I do want to recognize them. A lot of the work that goes behind the scenes here goes unrecognized. So thank you to all of our LTC staff people. You are joining us today to hear a little bit more about the Emergency Connectivity Fund. Please don't miss this opportunity. And I am Mindy Fiscus, your LTC Digital Access Coordinator. I also serve as your state E-rate coordinator and by default, your state Emergency Connectivity Fund coordinator. So thank you for spending some time with us this morning. There will be a lot of time and opportunity for questions and answers, hopefully. I do want to talk a little bit about the fund and what it will do, but I am curious. I would like to find out from you, have you applied for the ECF funds before, or is this brand new to you? So if you have not applied to the ECF funds, let me create a poll here real quick. Oh, sorry, I should have done that beforehand. Oh, let me just ask you and put it in the chat. It is totally fine. If you have not applied to the ECF funds before, if you would kind of pop up in the chat and say brand new, that will give me an idea of how many people want to know the basics. Brand new to all. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, that gives me a good idea. So we will start with the basics then. Welcome to ECF Essentials. If you have joined me for any of our E-rate training, you will know I like to call everything E-rate Essentials. So we're doing a little bit of adaptation here. One of the slides that you will see forthcoming is that ECF is not E-rate, but it does leverage some of the same programs. If you have a friend who would like to find out more about this webinar and could not attend today, or you want to share this information with some colleagues at your district after the webinar, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out that link to everyone who registered for the workshop. I'll make sure I do that over the weekend or on Monday, but you can also have access to this slide deck. So if you're interested in that, it is this bit.ly link at the bottom of the page. It is case specific, so it is /2022 ECF3 because this is Emergency Connectivity Fund Round 3. So it does look like we have a mix of people here who have participated in ECF already. There have been a couple of rounds already, and this is the third round. To give you a little bit background on it, ECF was part of the American Recovery Act, so it was passed way back in March of 2021, and they did put $7.1 billion into a fund to support home access. So this is not for campus use. Campus use is covered by E-rate, so that is stuff and connectivity at your school in the E-rate process. This is for home access for staff and students. So both staff is included in this, as well as students. And it does cover some things to support that learning, whether that be remote learning or whether it be something that has been coined as the homework gap. So in order for them to continue or do their studies at home. It is managed by USAC, which is the same organization that manages E-rate, and it does leverage some of the same login and application process, as well as some of the same terms. It is intended to fill an unmet need. So this fund is really supposed to be dedicated to you finding out who are those students who would lack access to devices and connectivity at home if it was not for having this fund to be able to provide it. We are going to talk a little bit about unmet need, how you might define that, and how you might support that definition on one of the future slides. It is 100% reimbursement for these connectivity and connected devices. So for those of you who are familiar with E-rate, you have a percentage discount and there is a cost that you have to cover yourself. With ECF, it is 100% reimbursement. So all of the costs will be paid by the program for the things that you are approved for. Again, this is for students and staff. And I stress that because a lot of the other funding sources that you may have had access to for teacher and student devices don't really cover teacher devices. And so it's important to know that this can be used for that as well. So if your gap or your unmet need is really your staff members having portable devices at home, this is something that you could leverage to take care of those costs. There are some things eligible for equipments and services in the program, and it is very specific. So when we get to the questions and answers, I'm going to share with you some of the questions that I have already received in email. Primarily, most of them have been about, hey, can I pay for, and listing that off. Most of the things that they're saying, can they pay for, I've had to say no to, unfortunately. So what is eligible for this program? In the form of eligible equipment, we're talking about Wi-Fi hotspots, the hotspots that you would receive from a cellular or cable provider to provide access wirelessly around. Typically, they run off of the wireless cellular network, not cell phones. So it's not like you can buy a cell phone and just turn on that data package to turn it into a wireless access point. It's only the access points themselves. Modems and routers. So those are what you would get from a cable company. Also included in that is the satellite routers. So if there's something that you're getting from a satellite distribution company like Starlink or one of the others, they would also be eligible for the program. Many times those modems and routers are one box combined. And so in the application, it will ask you, is this a Wi-Fi hotspot? Is this a modem? Is it a router, or is it a modem router combined? So you will, all of those things are eligible. Both the cellular providers as well as your traditional wired cable providers in your communities. And again, air cards or similar cards that do provide that connectivity that you can plug into your machine would be eligible. From the applications that we've seen thus far in rounds 1 and 2, most people are finding the Wi-Fi hotspots to be the most cost effective over those kind of older traditional technologies where you would plug that into your machine. But those are eligible if that is the best means of getting connectivity to a device for you. And also what's very popular are the connected devices. Basically, this is any kind of portable device that can connect to the internet. So this is your laptop, your Chromebook, your iPad, Android tablets, any of the kinds of devices that you are distributing in your school district, then that can connect to Wi-Fi. It is not labs. It is not physical computers that sit in the corner of a room for a teacher. These are portable devices and are intended to be used at home. Not that you can't use them at school, but they definitely need to be able to be taken home. So if your school or entity has a policy where things cannot be taken home, this is maybe not the right funding source for you. So these are to enable the homework gap and allow students to participate in learning outside of the traditional learning environment. There is a $400 cap on devices. So if you are looking to buy a Chromebook or a laptop, etc., $400 is the most you can get per device. That's not to say that you can't purchase a device that is more expensive. So the last thing that they want you to do is say, oh, we traditionally give everyone a device that is $750, but we're going to buy these $400 devices for the kids who can't afford to have the other ones at home. That's not what we want to see happen. We want you to be consistent with your normal ordering processes. Get that $750 device, but do know that you're only going to get a $400 reimbursement on that. So it's not to say you can't order your standard. It's just 400 is as much as you're going to get paid back. In addition to that, the $250 cap is on the hotspot devices themselves. I'm not seeing them at that cost. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, the hotspot devices have been very cost effective. You will see some requests for Wi-Fi hotspots that serve more than one student. So if you're going to outfit a bus, outfit a after-school program or a location like working in partnership with a church or your Y or something, and it's going to serve more than one student, you might be asked to build a case and explain why those costs are higher for that like router or Wi-Fi hotspot that you're getting. So if there is a cost that's higher than that, it's okay if it's serving more than one student, but you're going to have to describe that. Also, if you have a warranty on the device, and I see the question in the two questions that are in the chat, and I will address those. If you have a warranty or something, if it's bundled into the cost, it's okay, right? So if you bundle that in, it's still less than that $400. That is okay to do, but it must not be broken out as separate lines on your bid or invoice. So please do communicate with your company that you're talking to and make sure that is bundled in. That's the same kind of consideration for the Google management piece. So if you are asking for a Chromebook and you're asking for those to be managed and maintained, and I think that's like a $30 fee from Google for each device under your domain management, that is eligible as long as it's not a separate cost. So it needs to be a total cost instead of seeing like $350 and then a separate $30, it needs to be $380, and that is the bundled cost for the device. So again, talk to your providers. Like I said, this is round 3, so they should be pretty comfortable with that at this point. But do reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Again, in the invoicing as well. So we did see some providers bundle them up front in the bid, and then in the invoicing, they broke that out and it was difficult to get those paid for. So please do make sure your invoices bundle them together as well. USAC has final say on reasonable cost. So if you come in here and you're saying, hey, I'm going to ask for an outfitted device to outfit my bus, and there are, like 20 some kids on the bus that I have deemed need this access and have an unmet need. I want to take 20 times the 250 and multiply it out, and I want to spend that amount of money on the bus. They can come back and cycle back to you and say, hold on, wait a second. Other school districts are buying like equipment for a reasonable price. So you do want to make sure that what you're asking for is a reasonable cost and that it's just skyrocketed or padded because of the fact that this is a free program. The providers have been doing a very good job about that in what we've seen thus far, but just know USAC can say, hold on a second, I think this is out of range. You do want to do your due diligence and make sure that you are actually getting a reasonable price. So the question about accidental damage protection, if that is considered a warranty, then you can bundle that in the connected device. There have been times that some of the people have put in things like this general setup can be bundled in. Some companies refer to general setup, and then they have like a white glove service that also does like an inventory enrollment piece. And in some of those cases, USAC has determined that's above and beyond the general setup, and they've taken off a little bit of the cost that are eligible for those items. So know that. Again, please do communicate with your provider, and if you have specifics that you want to send my way, I would be happy to look at those. Katie, excellent question in the chat. I just recently heard about this offer of putting together cases or sleeves or protective covers with the devices. I have asked USAC to comment on that, and I hope to see something in their Q&A available for round 3. I wasn't aware that this was happening. I wouldn't automatically think that those cases would be eligible, but I am hearing from multiple entities now that that is something that is common practice or being shared as common practice. So I will cycle back with you guys on that one. If you do have a vendor who wants to bundle in those cases and you're questioning it, do send an email my way when you get those bids. I am still waiting for USAC to confirm or deny that those cases or sleeves can be bundled in the device. Again, if your invoicing in the end is going to break those those cases or those sleeves out, then they're not going to pay for it. But if it is bundled all in one price, right now what I'm hearing is that's going to be eligible. But stay tuned on that one. That seems a little bit further than what I expected to see in the bundled devices. I'll just be upfront and honest with you. I hope for your sake, for those who want to do it, that they do deem that as an eligible expense. Still waiting to hear. On the services end of things, services can be any kind of internet service to the home. So it does not have to be a Wi-Fi hotspot, though that is the most popular and the most common. We have also seen requests for cable companies. So it's the installation as well as the monthly charges for cable, the monthly charges for Wi-Fi. There isn't anyone in Illinois, but there are several places that are looking at in other states asking for Starlink connectivity, which is considerably higher per month than your traditional monthly rates, but that is really the only option for those rural settings. So any kind of internet to the home is eligible, as well as internet in a wireless setting. So a Wi-Fi hotspot is eligible. This does not cover hotspots for your school. So this is not like on-campus hotspots. This is not Wi-Fi access points. Those are both on campus and related to E-rate, where this is the portable and will be supporting the home access. In addition, there are some people, and it does go through some scrutiny and takes a little bit of time, but there are some people who say, hey, there is no internet access, no cable access, no wireless access in this community that sits outside of the boundaries of our town or this section of our town. And what we would be really interested in is working with the provider to build connectivity to that neighborhood. And that is an eligible expense. What I am finding is that the process to review that is a little bit more extensive, but they are going through the process and it is eligible. So if you have that situation in your community and you are looking to outfit an underserved area, you can leverage this program for that. It might just take a little bit longer to get those funding sources over the ones like the Wi-Fi hotspots that seem to go in a little quicker. So again, if you don't see it on this list, it's probably not eligible. However, if you do have a question or you get something your way, especially if it is coming from a vendor that's telling you it's eligible, please do reach out to me. If I do not know, I will reach out to our USAC or FCC contacts and see if we can find out. The most difficult thing about this program is defining that unmet need. So I mentioned that this is designed to fill in the gaps. It is designed to reach the students and or staff members who otherwise would not have internet or devices at home. You yourself have to define what is unmet need for your school districts. Some school districts will define it as, when we were in the pandemic, we had 75 students checked out devices and 120 students who checked out Wi-Fi hotspots in order to continue their learning. Those are the numbers that we are working with. Some school districts will do a survey and say, hey, this is how many replied to the survey and said they need a device or they need connectivity at home, and that's who we're outfitting. So that is one example of how I see school districts defining unmet need. Up on the other end of things, and you can see that I have this up here on a hill, there are some school districts that are defining unmet need as you must have a school device in order to participate in our online learning. It is required that you use a school device. We do not allow home devices or BYOD devices or anything like that to access our learning content. You must have a school device. They have a policy that says so. Some school districts are defining it as an unmet need because you have 200 devices that are end of life in the 21-22 school year or the 22-23 school year. And that is their end of life, and you have no other means to replace those devices. Other school districts will say, hey, we don't have surveys, we don't have checkout. This is not something that we've ever done before to address the home need. But we have, 75% of our students are free and reduced lunch, and those are the students that we are asking for. So you really can vary your options anywhere up and down this hill. You need to define it for yourself, and you need to be able to defend your definition. So if you are going to ride on the top of the hill and you are going to say, hey, you have to have a student device, we need 200 of these replaced because they are end of met need, all of the students in that grade level are going to have an unmet need if we don't buy them these devices, you are going to have to show in documentation inventory records that show those students and those devices will be expiring within the window of time we're talking about here for the program in order to get them to agree with you. So be prepared for that. There are some people who operated on the top of this hill here for funding, and in rounds 1 and 2 were successful, and others who got questioned and found themselves kind of in the middle of the hill. So maybe they said, we need 200 devices, and they couldn't defend that need, and USAC came back and said, you know what, we're going to combine that. We're going to not give you the 200 devices, but we're willing to give you 150 because those are the students that are eligible for National School Lunch Program of that 200 devices. So know that you are just going to have to define it and then defend your definition. So great comment in the chat to everyone. Starlink does operate in the state of Illinois in underserved areas. It is quite expensive. You're right. It's about $600 to get it started up and around $100 a month to keep it going. That is an eligible expense. In my experience, those who have asked for Starlink accounts, again, we have not had any in Illinois that I can find, but in the other states, we're had to go out and get maps to defend that Wi-Fi wireless connectivity service and cable connectivity service is absolutely not available at that location in order to get the funding for this Starlink service. So do know at those higher expenses, you are going to have more scrutiny and you're going to have to prove not just the unmet need, but also the location accessibility needs there. Take a breath for a minute and move on. Again, not E-rate. So it does kind of leverage some E-rate applications process. If you use a consultant for E-rate, you are welcome to use the consultant for ECF. Please do check with them. I'm sure there will be a fee on that. You are also welcome to file E-rate or file ECF on your own. The LTC will support you through that process, but some of the names are going to sound the same but look different. For example, in E-rate, we have to do an open bidding process and file a 470, 28 days before we pick a vendor. There is no open bidding requirement of 28 days here within the ECF process. You are welcome to go out and get commercially available devices and connectivity straight from the market. You do, however, want to cover your own local and state policies. So if your school district has a policy for bidding that is above a certain dollar amount, that has to get bid out. Or if you have to entertain bids from 3 providers and search out 3 providers and then choose the best one, please do follow your local and state policies. There are no extra requirements from the E-rate side or from the ECF side of things. Again, this is not E-rate. Our 471 is accessed in a different place when we log in for ECF, and it looks a little different. Our invoicing form is still called the Bear 472 if you're going to get reimbursed back to the district, but it looks a little different and you access it in a little different way. The main differences between the forms are the level of detail that is required upfront and in order to get paid. So for example, many times we turn in contracts for our E-rate, but we don't upload or attach a copy of the contract. That isn't required. On this end, it is. So if you are putting in a bid and you are wanting to get 25 of the X400s for $22 a month, you are going to have to upload documentation that shows that. So documentation is required on the front end in this process. And there are many, many times, for example, you'll hear me say on our invoicing page, they'll come back and say to you, I'm not going to pay this until I see that you've received it. Show me some kind of record of receipt of shipment, etc. So this process is way more upfront, heavy on documentation, but it is also loosening the reins a little bit when it comes to doing that open bidding process. There have been 2 rounds of this funding so far. The rounds of that funding came out in the summer last year, and they were for expenses in early last school year, and they were for expenses in the 21-22 school year. So they covered internet access, devices, and hotspots for the 21-22 school year that we are currently in. This round of funding that you are applying for is for next school year. It covers 22-23. Due to the fact that we have had such a delay in getting equipment out to people, and there have been some supply chain demands, they are allowing expenses for this school year to actually run all the way into next school year. So if you don't get something until next school year, that is fine. You can still turn that in and get that reimbursement for it. But if you are looking for devices in round 3, you are supposed to be looking forward into next school year. So you're expecting to receive delivery of those items after July 1st of 2022. So please know that, like, if you have an order that you're processing right now, I don't know what the supply chain demands on are than that, but you might get questioned if you purchase with this next round of funding and you receive it before July 1st. So please note which year you're supposed to be in here for round 3. The application window itself will open on April 28th and will only be open until May 13th. I actually think that's May 12th, and that's a typo. I will double check that. But do know it is a very short application window. The reason that we are having this webinar early and we're recording it for everyone is so that you can get your stuff together to effectively apply within that window. It is likely that this last round 3 window is the last window. And the reason that I say that is because looking at the previous rounds, there was about $8 billion in the fund. There was about $3 billion requested in the first round, another $2 billion or so in the second round. As we're looking at everything being funded, we're expecting to see about $1 billion left in the fund. And the other requests have both doubled that in their rounds. So please know this is likely the last round and will spend out the remainder of the funds. Again, not E-rate. It can be used for school buses and bookmobiles. So those are things that have not traditionally been eligible for E-rate. We have been asking for some time for those things to be eligible for E-rate and have been told no, because they are not on campus. This is your opportunity to outfit your school buses or bookmobiles with connectivity. Community and after school programs can be sites. Those entities, unless recognized as a educational entity in Illinois, which is not likely, are not eligible for E-rate. Therefore, they are not eligible for this program. But if you have a community after school program that you work with and you want to outfit them with connectivity, so you want to get them cable access or Wi-Fi hotspots to use in their after school programs off campus of your school district, you are welcome to do so and apply on their behalf. So the schools and libraries will be doing the application process, but you can secure connectivity for those programs if you choose to. Nationwide, there seems to be a little bit of a stress level around the SAMs being required. ISB already requires SAMs code access for our schools through GATA, so it really shouldn't be a problem for most of our Illinois school districts. But if you have some confusion or some stress about that, do reach out to me. I did provide a link here in the slide deck to where ISB walks you through how to go about getting those SAMs requirement numbers. But most of you already have done it, even if you don't know that you've done it. The application process does access through EPC. So when you log into E-rate using your same credentials, there is now a standing page that say I'm accessing the E-rate system, or I am accessing the Emergency Connectivity Fund system, the ECF system. And so both of those have the same login, the same process, but you will just choose one system or the other. I see that there are some chats there coming. And yes, that is a good point. The DUNS is moving to UEI, but it looks like the DUNS and the SAMS code stuff will be done automatically for everyone that already has one. If we get a hitch in the system there for any of you, I will let you know. The only time that has come into question about SAMs and DUNS numbers are if those have expired in the middle of, like, you asked for it, but it was valid and it expired in the middle of the way. Those are really the only questions that I've had, and it's only been 2. So I want to think that we're still taken care of, and everything that I've read thus far does look like that is a automatic transfer, but I will be watching for that, and we'll put notifications out on our website and on our lists and communities if I see any concern about that moving forward. So far, I still feel like we're taken care of in reading that. I do see a big old explanation about what you have asked for funding, et cetera. And I'm going to hold on to that comment until we get to the Q&A, because I think I have an example that will match that exactly. So again, documentation is expected in the applications. You need to know what it is you're getting, how much it is, how many of those you're getting, down to the make and model number and the cost. You are expected and will be providing that in your request, and it is required for invoicing. So you must show an invoice, paid or not paid. You must be able to show an invoice, and you must be able to show that you have received the product. So some kind of shipping notification in order to get that money back. There are two ways to do money, just like there was an E-rate. That's the standard, for the traditional way, is that you as the school district will pay for all the items up front, and then you will file entire reimbursement from the system. That is the set way. You can do SPI invoicing, which is the 473, where you don't pay anything for the product. It comes to you, and the provider bills the federal government. In order to do that for ECF, you must have a signed letter or notification from your provider saying they understand and are willing to do the billing on your behalf. As I said, the default for the program is the BEAR, where you will file for reimbursement. But if you want to work that out with your provider, you can say that on your form, but you will have to attach a letter agreeing to that. Again, you can estimate from your data and then shore up on your invoices. So if you think you need 100, and then you come down to it and you really only needed 98, that's okay. You can shore that up on the invoice side. But that was really designed as a process and leniency for rounds 1 and 2. I think they're really hoping that by this point in the middle of the school year, you have a good understanding of how you defined unmet need and what numbers of devices you will need. There is a little bit of flexibility on the back end, post-commitment changes, et cetera, that you can do to say, never mind, I thought I needed 6,000 of those, but in reality, once I talked to my administration, I really only need 4,000. I want to return the $2,000 requests, 2,000 other requests that I made. There is a requirement for CIPA filtering. So you must provide filtering of the devices, your students from getting harmful content. That filtering software, so those softwares and those programs that you're running on the devices to do the filtering on the devices are not eligible for the program. Sometimes the filtering can be done for you in the wireless access that you're getting from the provider. Please check. But you are supposed to be filtering harmful content from your students on district-owned devices. There is a CIPA flow chart that the FCC has put out. We'll make that bigger so you can see it. And basically it says, are you paying for these devices with ECF or E-rate? Then yes, you should be filtering. Or are you getting the, if you're not using ECF or E-rate funding, no, you don't have to filter. So know that if you're asking for it from this fund, the expectation is that you will be filtering harmful content from these devices. It is also the obligation of the schools and libraries who are getting the devices to keep track of the inventory. You are expected to note these somehow, you decide how, on your inventory systems. Some schools are saying I'm putting a different color inventory tag on these. Note that it comes from ECF funding, et cetera. If items go lost or stolen, you need to note that and be able to report that back to them if asked. So please know that you should be tracking these devices, who they are in the hands of. Never will they ask you for student names or addresses, but they do want to know that you have a policy and that you're following that policy. We have some lessons learned from the first few rounds. We know that you can only get that basic installation, meaning if you're getting a special installation where they engrave the name of your district on the laptops that you're receiving, probably not going to be eligible. And they do now have a running list from the first 2 rounds of what they're deeming eligible and not eligible. So do work with your providers to make sure what they're trying to sell you has been funded in round 1 or 2, and then you would be clearing the pathway for your review. There are some different designations of installation. So they might call it white glove installation with one company is just standard installation, but white glove installation with another company might be the elite version of that. So please know what you're getting when you're asking for basic setup. It is just basic, but it does include the enrollment into your domain. It may not include things such as asset inventory tagging, etc. It is more successful to separate out your hardware and your services. In other words, when we're putting in our request, we're going to put in one line for the Wi-Fi hotspot at $200 and another line for the monthly services for those Wi-Fi hotspots. And we will break those out separately. So detailing it out in the form is preferred and makes the process go a lot easier. We are also going to say if there's a one-time setup fee, and we see this in cable connections, the installation is $50, but then the monthly cost is $50 a month. We're going to break that out and spell that out on two different lines instead of including it on the same. So there are some things that we've learned along the way. One of the things that kind of changed is we just assumed that any kind of taxes, first of all, I think you should reach out and remind them that your schools and school entities and library entities, and you should get the tax exempt amount, just my 2 cents. But if you cannot get them to waive the taxes for you, taxes are eligible and they can exceed that device cap. So if you were paying $400 for a device or $399 or something, and there is another $25 worth of tax, that tax can be applied for as a separate line, and we have seen that funded. Some people did not know that and did not request reimbursement for the taxes in the first or second round and kind of wish they had. So please know those are eligible and they can exceed that cap cost if necessary. You must have a make and model number. For those of you who've participated in E-rate with me, they really do mean it. If you ask for the 2550, and then by the time you're purchasing it, they say we can no longer get the 2550. It's now the 2560. You do have to go back, tell them you're getting the 2560 instead, file some paperwork to make that change, or they will not pay an invoice. So if it says 2550 on the invoice, 2550 is what it needs to show on the request and in the shipping documentation. So know that you must have everything match. You must put in a make and model in the request. That can change, but you need to file documentation to note that change. You are going to have to provide, and this goes to the thing that I saw in the chat in the questions, you're going to have to provide if you are asking for additional service. So if you participated in round 1 or 2 and you have connectivity that you have gotten, whether that connectivity started July 1st of 2021 or whether it started in January 1st of 2021, you can continue that connectivity access into this next school year. You are going to have to describe to them, however, when your connectivity started, when it ended, and when this new connectivity request will start. You cannot overlap connectivity funding. So you are going to have to say, this is what I'm asked for in round 1 or 2. This is what I'm asking for in round 3. For those of you who are brand new to the program, if you already have Wi-Fi hotspots that you check out to your students, that is totally okay. You can use those existing contracts, but you will only be able to ask for connectivity starting July 1st of 2022, so next school year. So it does get a little bit tricky for those of you who got 6 months, like you waited and found out that you were funded in December, you activated that on January 1st. If you asked for only 6 months in round 1, you are okay, you can ask for 12 months in round 2. If you asked for 12 months in round 1, you were able to transfer that and get those first 6 months of next school year and still ask for an additional 12 months of funding after that. So because of the delay in funding, that did happen to a lot of people. So you're going to want to track when you started your service, when that first contracted service date ends, and what you're asking for here. So do figure that and know those math numbers before you fill out your form starting the 28th. Again, if you are getting bus Wi-Fi or if you are getting Wi-Fi for one of the locations where it's serving multiple students after school, you are going to have to explain why you're over the $250 limit. Like the standard is anything that's requesting over $250 for that router or that piece of equipment is going to get questioned. Be prepared with X number of students in this program have been deemed as having an unmet need. So we are serving this many students on that bus or this many students in that program that do meet our definition of unmet need. And that is why we are asking for more than the $250. In addition to that, be prepared to describe and defend and narrate your unmet needs, how you're defining it, what you're using to determine it, and have the documentation to back yourself up for that, and all contracts and all changes to accounts and models, etc. So documentation, documentation, I can't say it more. So what is new? So as long as you have purchased the equipment or services prior to June 30th of 2022, you can get it into 2023. So if you are freaking out right now because you did participate in rounds 1 or 2, and you're like, I don't know if I'll get those laptops in time, they're still sitting on a boat waiting from China or something, no fear. You can get those all the way in through the June 30th of 2023 school year. That was extended. So that's good news for those of you waiting from round 1 and 2. For round 3, again, your equipment can be purchased for the 22-23 school year. Those equipment prices, even if you have identified new unmet needs, and again, be able to defend that, you can purchase equipment for 22-23 out of round 3. You can also only get 12 months of service. So if you were Johnny on the spot, you started your service July 1st of 2021, you were awarded 12 months in the first round, you did great with that. You can see that I did give a description of those who started in January, and they can ask for their service for 12 months as well. So that's going to take them all the way till December of 2023. You only get 12 months. There's 18 months worth of time defined for round 3, but only 12 months of service can be received. They did that because of the delay in approval and access getting started for that first round. So that's kind of an exception, 18 months of time, but only 12 months of service can be funded for that third round. So can you purchase laptops for home use in 2023 for use in 23-24? My direct answer on that is no. Those need to be deployed and rolled out in 23-24. So this is, or in the 22-23 school year. This is just for the 22-23 school year. So I did have some people already come to me and say, my end of life on my devices is 23-24. Can I get these now? Probably not. You can try if you want, but they are going to say probably no, because it is to be rolled out in the 22-23 school year. I will be honest, some people hear my no and they try anyway. And, you know, that's a negotiation between you and USAC, but the definitions do say it needs to be for the 22-23 school year. Again, all the same things are eligible. All the requirements are still the same for round 3 as they were for round 2. You heard me mention earlier that I think, again, I don't have a crystal ball and I can't project it, but I believe the requests for round 3 will surpass the available funding that is available. If that happens, you will still get 100% of your funding requests, but they will determine who gets funded first by how poor you are. So if you are a school district that participates in E-rate and you are a rural school district at a 90%, you will be first in line. You in essence get a bump of 5%, and you can see that that's over here for rural. All rural districts got an extra 5% bump because they are rural, and this is to help serve underserved areas. So those who are 95% in this new formula will be funded first. Once their bills are received and granted, they will move down to the 90% urban districts. Once their requests are approved and granted, they will then move to the 85%. And they will go back and forth to getting down to those of you who are an urban 20% discount. That is not to say don't apply if you find yourself here in the middle of the chart. That is just to apply knowing that the other poorer districts are going to get their funding first and the funding might not get down to you. However, I thought we were going to ask for all of the funding in round 2, and we still have $1 billion left out of that $7 billion. So I could be totally wrong, and the request could be much lower than expected. But please do know, if you find yourself in that 90% window, both urban and rural, which is now 95, you have a really good shot at getting the funding here. You're first in line. Those of you in the middle, you might want to come up with a plan B for how you're going to replace these purchase these devices or this access if you do not get funding if there's just not enough funding available. In invoicing, when you go into the portal to do the invoicing, you're going to first select ECF, and then it lists your entity or your school district number. All the way over to the right, when we start our new form for applications, that's where you'll also find the invoicing form. And I've just had a lot of requests for that in the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to note that now. If you need help finding that, let me know, and I can help do that for you. I can create a video screenshot. We can meet via Zoom or something like that. But that is where you will find that invoicing. It is a little more detailed than what we've seen in E-rate. They are expecting to see a copy of the invoice. They are expecting to see some kind of verification of that shipping. You might want to get all those emails that you got as they shipped out in bulk and attach those all in a PDF and have them ready to go when you file that invoice, because they will be asking you for that. Again, the documentation must match the number and account requested. So if you asked for this program for 200 devices and your invoice shows for 500, it's probably going to hit a red flag and get bumped back. I would suggest if you are buying from multiple sources of funding and you're doing 500 total, that you reach out to your provider and ask them for an invoice that matches the amount of your unmet need total that you're asking for here. Again, if the model number or the dollar amount does not match exactly, you're going to be questioned for that. So the key is to have everything matching and to have everything ready to go when you're asking for your invoicing. There are ways to change the make and model number. We have done that frequently because of supply chain demands and things just no longer being available of that model, so you had to switch. There is a process for doing that, and I can help you to do that if you find that necessary. So a couple, let me just get down here to the application workshops and when they are, so that if you're interested in applying with us and you now have enough information to make yourself dangerous, I will be offering application workshops. They will be virtual, real similar to our E-rate workshops that we've had. We will all be logging in together and filing the form together, and I will show you where things are and take questions and answers. I have 3 of them set up on the calendar for the LTC. They are all 3 in the window. Again, they have to be submitted within the window of April 28th to May 12th. So they are April 28th, and that one is in the afternoon. May 4th, that one is in the morning, and May 9th, and that one is over the lunch hour. So I did pick 3 different times of the day and 3 different days of the week. I'm hoping to meet you where you are. We will also be recording those workshops as well. So if you are wanting to watch those through with a video, that's fine. Unlike my E-rate workshops, there will not be updates in what's eligible and what's not eligible. That's what this today was for. It will just be the filing of the form and the answering the questions of the form. And so we will have 2 hours on each of those days to file that workshop, those applications together. I will be sending you a reminder if you register for those to have your login to USAC, to test that out the day before and make sure you can get in, and to have all of your documentation ready to move forward. So you can register for those events at our LTC Illinois website /events. They are live and have active registration right now. So please know that those 3 workshops are available for you. If there are any changes to the program, AKA when I find out if those sleeves and cases are definitely eligible, I will be sending those notes out to our LTC community. I also try to CC those messages out to Tech Geeks for those of you who are on the Tech Geeks list. So I will be trying to send that information out through the community. It is a great place to join our funding and access channel so that you can be aware of these kinds of funding opportunities, both now and in the future, if any more present themselves. There are some Q&A access available automatically through the FCC site and the emergencyconnectivityfund.org, which is a USAC site. So there are already some information and more information about the program there. If you need to go back into your district and talk to other people to get their buy-in or understand the program a little more, there are a couple websites that I've linked here and an official FAQ that does also spell out some of the most common questions and answers that you might be facing. I am going to take some questions and answers here, and the one that I see in our chat so far was the one about services and Chromebooks. So I'm trying to get my mouse to go over where I want it to. So the first thing that I'm going to answer is this question from Kelly that says, we were approved for 6 months of hotspots for this year. We have not installed or received any of those. What do I need to fill out? And can I use that 6 months next year? You can. So you can take that 6 months and you can push pause on that whole process, and you could ask for the first 6 months of next year. However, then if you are planning to apply for round 3, you will need to note the start and end of that service and then ask for only 12 months. So the absolutely last date that you can get service is December 31st of 2023. So I would encourage you to start that up at the very latest, the 6 months that you have funding for. Start that at the very latest as of July 1st. It might behoove you to get it just a little bit earlier so that you line up and make sure you have connectivity all the way through December, or that you have a plan for paying those costs January 1st of 2024, what that would look like. If you started that service now, so say you have that 6 months and you decide to turn it on right now, you of course have to do the math of that 6 months and then start your next 12 months in the next year if you're funded for it at that end date. So you would just put you don't have to sign a new contract or anything, you just have to note the start and end dates. In addition to that, can we purchase Chromebooks before July 1st, given the amount of time it takes? Yes, you can. I did talk to somebody this week that said, I'm going to get the order in now. That is fine. Nobody's restricting you on your orders. Just know that if it comes in before that July 1st date, you run the risk of in audit or in invoicing them saying, hey, we're not going to pay this at round 3 because it was for round 1 and 2. So I hope that those devices then come in after July 1st of 2022 for you. I'm looking for more questions and I'll let Matt kind of field those for me. You can, Matt, can we unmute without just unmuting everyone, like allow them to the ability to unmute themselves rather than get everybody's background noise, if that's an option. If you want to ask a question verbally, you're welcome to do so. Matt's shaking his head like he had that power. The ultimate guru of the webinar. Some of the questions that I received beforehand that I'll cover with you. What about access points on campus in a parking lot that would serve students with an unmet need that don't have connectivity at home? That is not eligible for this program. Your athletic facilities and parking lots are considered on campus. You will need to leverage E-rate funds for that. I got some in round 1 and 2 devices, but now I want to get more in round 3. Absolutely, you could. Please define your unmet need and please have documentation supporting your request. What if the wireless doesn't work? What if I have, tried to give a wireless hotspot out to a student, they came back and said that doesn't work? My one solution for you, not mentioning one company over another, but it is just a good solution. Companies like Kajit will operate with multiple providers. So they can say, hey, that wasn't, Verizon didn't work. Let's switch this one over to T-Mobile or AT&T. That is a solution. You can also get wired connectivity through a cable company for those houses that do not have cellular access. I do recognize there are places in our state that don't have either. You can try to work with Starlink or something like that if you're interested in having those conversations. And again, for the buses and the after school programs, just be prepared to defend your request. Likely that equipment is more than that $250 limit. So that is eligible, absolutely eligible. A lot of those programs will have the equipment that they will sell you for your buses. But then in addition to that, there'll be like a monthly charge for internet that you have. Both of those things are eligible, the equipment as well as those monthly charges. So those would both be eligible for the program to cover the 22-23 school year. See, talking is permitted, but no talking. I'll pause. And
I have a question.
Okay, what's that?
Hopefully you can hear me. And there's been some discussion on this with some of the school districts. So we have Chromebooks that are coming up on their end of support date, their AUE date at the end of June of this year. Does that qualify as an unmet need? And I realize that there's no cut and dry. There may not be a cut and dry answer here.
You can define that as an unmet need. And if you choose to define that as an unmet need, then you will need to factor into account some of those other things. So going back to my chart, it is an unmet need, But if you have defined unmet need as only the kids who filled out those surveys, then we're only talking about the ones who filled out those surveys. If you have defined unmet need as you must have a district-owned device and you have that somewhere in policy, then maybe you could talk about all of those devices. But again, those are the ones that are expiring within the before or in the 22-23 school year. It is not ones who have end of life or end of support in 23-24. Again, you can fight that or build a case for that if you want to try to. But from everything that I'm seeing in the Q&A right now, it will be just those devices expiring or having end of support June 30th of 2023 or before.
Thank you.
Are we able to apply for, okay, I'm sorry. I need Chris to define for me ADP, or someone to define for Chris ADP.
Accidental damage warranty protection.
Okay, so if you got that in round 2 and it was bundled in your devices, then you're saying it's a subscription for a second year.
For example, I was told that ADP was not qualified for it in round 2.
Okay, so if you already got denied on it, you're likely not going to get it in round 3. So
I mean, from a third-party consultant.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. When you put in the request, your options are equipment or service. That isn't a piece of equipment. That's an ongoing warranty cost, and it isn't a service. It's an ongoing warranty. So by definition, I don't know how you would apply for it. I don't think it meets either one of those lines. Again, we didn't expect this to run until next year, Chris. So that's not a question that I've seen asked and answered. They're really clear about it. If it was a separate cost broken out on the invoice, that it was not eligible, only if it's bundled with a device itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
I also got a really interesting question this week about the program that I will share with you. There was a school district interested in doing virtual desktops. So they have Chromebooks and they're interested in doing some virtual desktoping to be able to do like computer-aided drafting software and things like that on their Chromebook, which is a possibility. You can work with various virtualization providers to get that. I like the idea. I think it's a fantastic concept. I don't know how it would fit in this, again, because it's licensing. It's not a device or a software. But if anybody wants to try that so I can watch how that goes, I would be entertained at least. You only have a few minutes left, but I am happy to take any more questions. Again, I'll go to my last slide. Sorry for the whiplash there. If you have any questions that come across your way that you want to ask me about, you can reach me at mfiscus@ltcillinois.org. That's in the upper right-hand corner. Thank you again for joining our webinar series. If you want a copy of the slide deck, it is ECF3, not ECF2. Again, a typo on my part. I apologize for that in the bit.ly. You can also check out our funding and access page where I have posted information, and will this afternoon post the links for registration directly there for these 3 upcoming workshops. Again, don't forget, you do have support in applying if you want to join one of those workshops.
Okay. Question.
Yes.
What is how long do we have to hold on to how long can the students hold on to the Chromebooks before we can surplus or decommission the computers?
So the typical standard for E-rate and ECF is that 3 to 5 year window. If something is broken or damaged, you're going to want to note that on your inventory, but that's a typically 3 to 5 years. So hopefully that matches your like refresh cycle or whatever you're doing. You do just want to keep inventory records of that. Like E-rate, all of the paper documentation needs to be kept for 10 years. So you're going to want to be able to track that, show when they do go off of inventory, et cetera. But the typical 3 to 5 years is usually what we hear.
Okay.
And you're welcome to all the thank yous in the chat. We're always here and happy to help.
And Mindy, you make a good point. If you're not part of that LTC community, go ahead and join up in that. And that's a great place to get your funding questions and lots of other topics there as well.
And please do post your questions in the community. I get a lot of emails individually, and I understand that. But if you post them in the community, they can benefit not just yourself, but everyone else in the community. So please do question and answer in the community if you can. Thank you all for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. Good luck with ECF, and let us know if there's anything else we can do to help.